Hey there, it's Tony Butler. Today we're going to talk about one of the most profound books I have ever read by far. It's also one of the most important books for marketers to read and entrepreneurs read and study, especially if you're starting out in your career and you're just struggling to produce content, whether it's audio, video, or written. The book is by Stephen Pressfield. It's called The War of Art. If you've ever tried to create something new, this book will ring for you. It's a mind-numbing book. Before I get into it, please click on this video, and if you haven't done so yet, follow this channel. I'm giving it all away. Decades of experience and marketing advice, as well as some tips and tricks in personal productivity and mindset. So if you don't know Stephen Pressfield, he's an author. His two most well-known works are probably The Gates of Fire and The Legend of Bagger Vance. The Gates of Fire, it's one of my all-time favorites. It's the book that the movie 300 with Gerard Butler is based on. The Legend of Bagger Vance, I think it was Will Smith, if I'm not mistaken. But his most important work, in my opinion, is a book he wrote a number of years ago called The War of Art. This book, it found me at an important time in my career. I was struggling to produce content for clients. I hit the wall. Every time I would try to write something, even something that should be easy, I started to have panic attacks. I know that sounds crazy, but it's the absolute truth. And I don't mean figurative panic attacks. I mean for real. My heart would start racing. I would feel this kind of panic, and suddenly I'd have 101 things more important than writing to do at the moment. And I mean, vital things like organize my junk drawer, rearrange my shoes near the front door, anything to not write, anything to not produce. And some days it was like I almost had a blackout. I would just kind of come back to myself, and I'd find myself doing some of just the oddest things, in the backyard, raking leaves in the middle of the day. I mean, just bizarre. Because what was happening was my mind was going into sort of this fight or flight mode, and I would just run away whenever assignment came up, and it was tough. It was ruining my business. It doesn't sound like a big deal if you were just a part-time writer, part-time producer, but I'm a pro. This is what I do for a living. When you're running an agency, especially in those early years when I was producing client work, and everything of real value that came out of the agency back in those days, it was me doing it. And not being able to work, not being able to really get into it was disaster. Agencies live on deadlines, and clients pay you to create and deliver. And guess what? If you don't create and deliver, then sure as hell they are not going to pay you. And the tough time for me was, at the time, for most of my first 15 years of my married life, we were a single income family. My wife's Russian, and she's also a bit old school. And when she first found out she was pregnant with our first son, she came to me and she's like, "Tony, you need to make more money. I will take care of the family. You'll make money." I was like, what? So she stops working. Now it's all on me. And, being the total and complete moron that I am, I somehow got the idea that, hey, I can make a living writing content. I could be a writer for a living. And, so when this started happening in the panic attacks, I needed a cure, something to get my mind out of the depths. And to make things a bit worse, if they could be worse, it's like Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will, and at the worst possible moment. So the panic attacks and the writing, I spent a number of years at war, and I started to have PTSD. I was having problems from the war, and I'm not going to go into that part of it. It's a whole different struggle. Somehow it's related, but it didn't make the fear of writing any easier. And I'm sure the two were related in some way, but I never quite unraveled how. But what did happen is, right about this time, I found Stephen's book, The War of Art. It's not a novel. It's more like I think of the book kind of as a war plan, and it's written for creators to overcome an invisible enemy. And that enemy, according to Pressfield, it's an unseen force that prevents creators from doing their work. And he calls the force the resistance. When I read the first few pages of the book years ago, I knew they were true. I mean, I read it, I was like, oh my God, this is my life. It was like the guy had a crystal ball. Okay, so let me read a quote from the book. It says, Most of us have two lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. Between the two stands the resistance. And then he asks the question, are you a writer who doesn't write, a painter who doesn't paint, an entrepreneur who never starts a venture? Then you know what the resistance is. And he capitalizes the word resistance as if it's a person's name, And he thinks of the resistance. It's a living, breathing creature, a monster in the night. It's that thing that you thought as a little kid was hiding under the bed, just waiting for the lights to go out. Okay? I can't explain what a profound moment it was for me, because it was exactly what I had been feeling. And as I read the rest of the book and he spells out the struggle, I realized it was my battle. It was my war. The resistance was keeping me from doing my work because deep down I was scared. I was scared my work was terrible, that it sucked, that I sucked, that nothing I did would ever make a difference for clients in the world. And even worse, it started to create kind of this creeping nihilism, a creeping thought that nothing matters. My life, my work doesn't matter. I don't matter. It was one of the most awful feelings in the world. There's an old cliche about creatives of all types, writers, painters, singers, artists, you know the crowd. Everyone expects you to be a drug addict or an alcoholic. Why is that? How many genius creatives can you name that died of a drug or alcohol overdose? Think back. Jimi Hendrix, John Belushi, Amy Winehouse, Whitney Houston, Tom Petty, just recently, a year or so ago, Prince. Those are just the ones off the top of my head. There's an entire page on Wikipedia that talks about this, with hundreds of names on it. But those hundreds, that's a small dent of the real number, because the real number of lives resistance destroys, it's in the millions. Because most people who meet the resistance, it stops them. They never get started. It defeats them early. They procrastinate and they have panic attacks like I did. Okay, until one day it's too late and they die with regret. It's the great novel that they wanted to finish. It lays in the bottom of the desk drawer until it's finally thrown out by a surviving relative. It's tragedy. I would argue that a lot of marketers have a serious problem with the resistance. A lot of entrepreneurs have this problem, especially in-house marketers and entrepreneurs who are at the beginning of their career, okay, who are handling their own marketing. They don't want to do anything edgy. Even when their gut is telling them that edgy will get noticed, that edgy can make a difference, edgy will make a new splash in the world, they're afraid to try it. And why? Because the resistance beats them down. So instead, they publish the exact same crap as everyone else in the brand, every other brand out there, everyone else in the industry. It's me too, me too. They share the same industry news. They write all the same crappy articles. And even then, you'll see across an industry, all the websites start to look exactly the same. And it's because the resistance has kicked all of their asses. It doesn't matter that no one reads their crappy blog or reads their emails or follows them on social media, because edgy's risky. It's a shame, because the fix is not that hard. The fix is to sit down, look the resistance in the face, and get to work. Ignore the screams in the back of your mind, charge forward, and do the work. It sounds simple, but it's not. It's the hardest thing that you do every day, is to sit down and start the work. It takes courage. It's one of the most liberating things you can do. Just get started and promise yourself that no matter how hard it gets, no matter what obstacles the resistance is going to throw in your path, you're going to finish. And the thing is, even if you finish something that's not that great, you just have to start again and keep going, because beating resistance is even once. If you can sit down and write even once, do your best work, just put everything you have into it, it'll help you build a bit of confidence, and then you can do it again and again. For me, every day is a struggle with this. It never goes away. It's a nonstop battle, a battle to the death. And every time I win the battle, the next one gets a little bit easier. And that's why I try not to take any days off from writing. I know that sounds nuts. I'm telling you, if I take more than one day off from writing, when I come back, it's hard. It's even harder than it was before. If I take 2 days off and I'm coming back, I might not win for the day. And then it might take me 3, 4, 5 days to get started again. I write on Christmas. I write on my birthday. What better gift can I give myself than a win against the resistance on the days when most people are taking those off and they're celebrating? Okay? Because I'm scared that if I stop, then when I start again, it's going to be so hard I won't be able to start, and then I'm going to be, I'm going to be Prince, and I'm going to be shooting up. I'm going to be chasing that black. For you, take a hard look at the work you're doing. Is it your best stuff? If not, why would you publish? What would you publish if you didn't have any restraints? What scares you? Take a look at it again. If it scares you, it's probably what you need to be doing, because that fear is coming from a place. It's more likely than not the resistance sneaking in and stealing your best ideas from you. Okay, so I encourage you, pick up the book, read it. It's a mind-numbing work. I wish I knew Stephen Pressfield personally so I could thank him. I'd love to track the guy down sometime, and maybe one of these days I will. So that's it for today. Check it out, The War of Art. I think every marketer should read this book. It's one of the most important works of our time. Okay, and of course, if you have an interest in content marketing, you might be considered checking out Primal Storytelling. There's nothing else like it in the world. I overcame the resistance to make it. Almost killed me, but I offer a Primal Storytelling certification you can earn after completing the course. It's a proven form of delivering great results to a business, and it can be a great way to make yourself more valuable in the marketplace or to apply to your existing business. But hey, before you go, I want to leave you with something. If you already have a business and you're struggling to build out a content marketing program for your business, hey, DM me. Put a comment, put in the comments a link to your website, and I'll take a look and I'll give you some ideas on where to start on a value theme, free of charge. You can also message me on Instagram. It's Anthony L. Butler, or shoot me an email at anthony@cangdoideas.com. I read all my own email. I answer all my own messages. All right, until next time, this is Tony. Be well.